Welcome to the Scorebook Live California football preview show. I'm Connor Morrissette. He's Lance Smith. We're here at beautiful Mater Dei High School because it's the week that Mater Dei travels to play St. John Bosco. We're going to catch up with linebacker Dean Neeley, who just earned his first Division I scholarship earlier this week, a little later in the show. Lance, it's rivalry week. It's the biggest regular season week of the high school football season. Are you ready?
I am so excited. I am so sad that there's so many great games that all have to be on the same day, October 25th, this Friday. We're going to talk about 4 of them, or 5 of them, including City Section, outside of the top 1, but all eyes are on the top 1, like your column said.
Absolutely. In the City Section, not the greatest week, but there is one rivalry game that kind of rises above the others, in my opinion. It's too bad that it's going to be unevenly matched as Carson travels on the road to play Narbonne. I know Carson is having a down year, the 1-7. Narbonne is 8-0 after Lone Peak had to forfeit their game earlier this week because of an ineligible player, even though that game was a long ways away. But anyway, it was close last year. I think it's going to get out of hand this year, but it's a game I wanted to touch on in the City Section A because it's a historic rivalry, and B, it was closer a year ago than a lot of people thought, but Carson's having a nightmare season. They lost to the buzzer last week to Banning, the second time they've lost a game in that fashion. Narbonne's rolled just about everyone, bar that Lone Peak game, and they're ticking on all cylinders, so clicking, I should say, on all cylinders. So it's not going to be the prettiest, but I wanted to hit on that game.
Yeah, and last year, the reason, or presumably the reason that Carson was able to keep it so close for a lot of the game is that they do have a lot of speed on the team. They've lost their starting quarterback, Uiale, about a month ago, maybe a little more, broken ankle, and that's a very, very tough break for them. They could potentially, at full health, pulling out some of these close games, be a lot better than 1-7. They're still fast, a lot of speed in their secondary. That is going to help them against Narbonne, who's one of the fastest teams in the country, bar none. But they will be hard pressed to keep this from getting out of hand.
I agree. San Clemente at Mission Viejo. San Clemente upset Mission Viejo last year. Mission Viejo is going to try to make sure it doesn't happen again, and I think they will. They're a better team, and Peter Castelli's a really great quarterback for them. He's put up a lot of points. Lance Kennelly on defense is an incredible athlete, and they have one of the most underrated defensive lines in the region, I believe. San Clemente's good with Nick Billups. I like him at quarterback, but they lost to Corona Del Mar. I think we'll see the same result against Mission Viejo, their big rival.
Exactly. San Clemente, outside of the Corona Del Mar game, has had a very easy strength of schedule. They've taken care of business outside of CDM, but I think that CDM game showed that they're very consistent at taking care of business with inferior competition, but once there's teams that are at the very upper end of the echelon of talent, such as Mission Viejo for sure, who's definitely in the same ballpark in terms of just prowess as CDM, it's a tough order. Mission Viejo is just stacked across the board. They have not slipped up once this season, and they are so heated. They have been looking forward to this game since it went down poorly a year ago. There is definitely some bad blood between these teams. Don't expect a dirty play, but I would definitely expect trash talk, shoving, celebrations, just general, one of the highest energy games you'll see. I mean, in fact, this is my personal number 2 regular season game of the year, just happens to be behind the number 1 regular season game of the year, which we're going to talk about.
Sierra Canyon against Grace Brethren, the next game up on the list, Lance. I was at this one a year ago. Grace Brethren fell at the end of Sierra Canyon. It was a really fun one to cover. I think the scripts flipped a little bit this year, and what I mean by that is Grace Brethren, I think, is better than Sierra Canyon, and they'll be the ones winning. Sierra Canyon has played great defensively for pretty much the whole year, bar that Oaks Christian game. But they've had some issues on offense. They've switched quarterbacks. Jaden Peary and Amari Powell have been going in and out, and that's not really ideal for them. Grace, they've stuck to their guns. They've run the ball, and they've done a great job with Josh Henderson and Julian Stokes. I think they'll be able to run on Sierra Canyon, and I think they'll get the win. Yeah,
and both teams have a lot of playoff seeding on the line here. Sierra Canyon, probably Division I is probably out of the question. If they lose. If they win, there's a chance. But if either way, what they're really going for probably is good Division II seeding, because if they get hot, going to the Division II finals is not out of the question for them. And for Grace Brethren, right now they look like the second best team in Division III behind Corona Del Mar. I don't think catching them for the number 1 spot is possible, but if they win this game, especially convincingly, they should lock up Division III, which they're still fighting for seeding with the likes of Alamany and La Habra. So for them, that's going to make a big difference as far as Division III playoff seeding goes.
Before we get to our interview with Dean Neeley here at Mater Dei, we have the Notre Dame against Bishop Amat game. That could decide the Mission League Championship.
Yes.
If Bishop Amat wins, they have to be the favorites to win the league after their wins over Alamany, as well as just last week against Cerro. It was a tougher game, but they pulled that one out. If Notre Dame wins, they slipped up against Chaminade, but then they'd have the tiebreaker against Bishop Amat. Remember, this game a year ago, Lance, had to be split into 2 days. They played the second half on a Saturday after some thunder and lightning issues, and it kind of ruined a really great game. I don't think we'll run into that problem this week. Who can stop Damian Moore on Notre Dame? That's my question. No one's been able to stop him so far this season besides the Jay Serra line. I don't know if Notre Dame has the horses to do it. I like Bishop Amat.
Yeah, I like Bishop Amat too. I'm going to give Notre Dame a good chance depending on their health. That's really been the question for them lately, especially after a strong preseason. And then, of course, they open league with that kind of puzzling 35-14 loss to Chaminade. But also, Chaminade has proved to be a much better team than they were in the preseason anyway. Of course, Notre Dame was missing some key players in that game. So they've rebounded pretty nicely, still being in league contention after getting beaten down by someone who was on paper possibly the worst team in the Mission League coming in. So they have to be fired up having this chance to kind of not officially clinch the league, but put a bit of a stranglehold on it. But Bishop Amat's going to be tough. They would definitely win, 6, 7, 8 times out of 10. I think Notre Dame definitely has a chance, though, if they can get downfield early on the offensive side of the ball, because we know their defense is good. Damian Moore is almost impossible to stop, but Notre Dame certainly has the defensive tools to at least have a chance.
Like we mentioned off the top, we're here at Mater Dei. Huge game this week. Biggest game in the country. Mater Dei traveling on the road to play St. John Bosco. Dean Neeley, linebacker for Mater Dei, joins us. Dean, you have 3 games against St. John Bosco under your belt in the past. How has that experience helped you for a hostile road environment Friday, one of the biggest games of the year, like I mentioned?
It's very helpful going against Bosco, especially because we've played them twice a year for the past 3 years. Our coaches are used to them. Our players are used to them. We're used to their tendencies. I've played DJ since we were both freshmen and on the freshman teams, going against each other and a few other guys like Sam Beast, Nate Jones, their running back, and Chris Hudson. So we're all used to them. We all kind of know them. We're all like not super close, but we have a respect for each other. Yeah. So it's very, very helpful. This is the biggest game of the year, obviously. So it'll be fun.
So you guys obviously play a number of games on national TV every single year. It's not the first time, won't be the last time. But how do you guys deal with the pressure?
Pretty much, we're just used to the national TV because we've had so many games like that, so it's not really a big factor into coming in. And we have people like Bryce Young, JT Daniels. Like we've had media at practice a bunch of times in the off season. We have hundreds of coaches come through, so we're really not used to, we are used to having distractions like that, so it doesn't really go into effect with us. Sometimes we'll have to have guys just like tone it down a little bit, but other than that, we're really good with pressure like this.
Dean, without giving too much away, what's the game plan to stop DJ? You've had some success in the past, but they have so many studs on that offense. How are you guys approaching this week, and what's it going to take this week to pull out a win?
We're just going to hit him. We got to hit DJ. We got to contain him because he's the best passer we've gone against and definitely the best runner as well. So he's the best overall quarterback we've ever gone against. But it does help that we've gone against him the past, well, for me, 4 years, I guess. But, our game plan is good. We'll be solid.
So after the game against St. Francis, in which you guys came up big, especially on the defensive end, you told me that even though St. Francis was the number 2 ranked team in the country at the time, now number 3 behind Bosco, of course, it didn't really prepare you that much because Bosco's just a whole nother animal, and they're their own beast. Now that you guys are most of the way through Trinity League play, do you feel any more prepared for this specific game, or is it still, you got to treat Bosco as their own thing and that's that?
I mean, Bosco is definitely their own beast, but the Trinity League as a whole is just crazy. Coach Rollo always says on any given Friday night, any Trinity League game team can beat another one. As you guys could see with the Bosco Servite game, that was pretty close. And then, but I think they are a lot better than they played that night. And I mean, their talent attests to that. Their out-of-state team games have attested to that. So they might have just not shown up that night, but they pulled out the win, so we're going to have to do the same.
Dean, in the past, this game's been played at a neutral site, but it's at the St. John Bosco Stadium. First time you guys are going to play at that new stadium. And capacity, it's going to be tight. The tickets sold out in 24 hours. maybe some of your friends or some of your family won't be able to go because it's sold out so quickly. You guys are going to be facing a lot of adversity because it's going to be a Bosco heavy crowd. They're able to sell to whoever they want, and there's just a small amount of tickets for Mater Dei people. That's advantage Bosco. How do you overcome that?
Honestly, the biggest advantage we have is that we've already played there. We played St. Francis there, although we'll be in a different locker room this time. We are used to the stadium. We're used to the tight feel of it. Even though we won't have as big of a crowd on our end, we still have a bunch of people coming through. I know my entire family got their tickets, so thankful for that, yeah. I know a bunch of my friends, we actually were selling student tickets today. I was a part of that because I'm the senior class president as well. But I was helping out with that, so a bunch of my friends are coming on, so I know we'll have good support there.
Great.
So you got your first Division I offer from University of San Diego, and very excited about that, like you said. Does that affect your energy and give you even more of a boost this week, or is it just business as usual?
University of San Diego is an amazing institution. I got to go out for a visit 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember after which game. I think it was after the Orange Lutheran game, but I got to meet their linebacker coach, Coach Robinson, and Coach Barton, who was the one that gave me the offer, the official offer yesterday. And it's just amazing. I'm very ecstatic about the offer, and it's one of my top schools, so I'm very, very happy for that. But honestly, that doesn't really affect how I'm going to play. I'm going to play like I'm an underdog, like I've played every single game of my life.
He's Dean Neeley. That's Lance Smith. Mater Dei, a huge game against St. John Bosco on the road coming up Friday. I'm Connor Morrissette. Dean, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.